and the beautiful highlight toning, like in the darkroom, a polysulfide to exhaustion toner overnight in a print washer, and there's beautiful subtle split toning with blues. So let's investigate and compare and contrast that to our ideas of papers we're printing on. Now, I'm going to start with a couple of our key characteristics. Warm tones, cold tones, more neutral tones, relative brightnesses of the paper white, but also, and these are my classifications, this is not anything sanctioned by anyone other than ourselves, the idea of texture. Now, there's another 3 criteria we can talk about in our fine art printmaking characteristics. But let's just go with these 2 opposing ideas. The color of the paper and the texture of the paper and the effects that they have on the rendering of the image and our reception of the image. The rendering of and the reception of. All right. What's the file size and how are we going to lay this out? Let's have a look at Mirage and drag your image in. I've got a P900 A2 desktop printer selected with cut sheet, rear paper feed. Let's go to A3, and at 100%, it beautifully fits on an A3 page. Let's center it to put even borders all the way around. And here are all of the papers that I've profiled. So what are their distinguishing characteristics? Now, this is interesting because if I, for example, choose Arche Acryl rag, watercolor paper, infamous, incredibly textured. I call up those settings and I look at the rendering. Let's use a relative colorimetric, numerically accurate with black point compensation. I can simulate my paper color. Nothing's out of gamut. So that's a soft proof in Mirage. But of those 2 criteria, I cannot see in my soft proof the textured qualities of the different papers, but I can most certainly see the differences between cold tone and warm tone. So I have paper white simulation turned on, and you can see the paper's warmth is helping the toning in the sky to be amplified even more. What about something like Canson Photoluster? And you can see the duller and cooler whites. And that helps enhance the water and this sense of split toning between the subject in the foreground and the toning of the sky. I can certainly soft proof the color and density. But what is that doing to my reception of the image? Not just the rendering, my reception. The warmer the color of the paper, the warmer will be our overall sense of the image. And when we have paper white included, as I had by centering it on an A3 sheet in Mirage, my goodness gracious me, the warmth, it's going to bring everything forward. The buildings are going to appear larger, taller compared with a cold tone paper, even a baryta, or even the cool tone, a very textured paper like Acryl compared to a very smooth paper like Arche 88. Let alone a glossy 3-dimensional paper like Canson Baryta Photography. The warmth in the sky is going to persist, but the coolness is going to help this split toning effect, as I was saying. These cooler colors will appear a little cooler, while the highlights, the sky, will be less warm than on a warm tone paper. But because of the amount of toning, split toning in your file preparation, the sky is still going to be warm tone. And remember, we've got a Baryta soft gloss and we've got a Baryta matte. So we'll talk about the surfaces in a moment. Now, they're both really smooth compared to an edition etching, compared to a BFK Reeves, compared to an Acryl rag, for example. So the smooth tones won't disrupt the stochastic patterning in these rippled reflections. It will render them with real authority. It won't disrupt the architectural drawing composition. But then, is that exactly the feeling I want? Because look at these ripples, they're quite agitated. It's not a mirror-like still high-altitude lake before the sun has crested the horizon. No. And the portentous sky, the warm tones racing towards us. Is it smoke haze? My mind also starts racing in terms of reading and interpreting it. So if I print on a textured paper surface, even edition etching, then it is going to be even more agitated, more disrupted. I can feel the wind on my face hitting you like a torrent. Whereas on a really smooth paper, it'll calm that down. Now, probably just how I'm feeling today, my sense is, let's calm it down. Let's, of those options of texture, which I can't soft proof, but I can think about and feel and make test strips on a couple of papers, I'm going to go for a smooth and cooler tone paper to emphasize the split toning and the difference between where I am, even though I'm in the water, I might be safe, I might not be in danger. The smooth surfaces will calm that down for me as an observer, as a participant in the staging of this scene, while the sky will be slightly less warm toned because of it's on a cooler tone paper. The paper color has very little effect on the dark shadows because we're covering it with so much ink, but certainly in the highlights it's profound. But the buildings won't be quite as tall as on a warm tone paper in terms of their feeling, their sense of growing up out of the land, claiming territory in the sky, advancing towards us. So I'm probably not going to go really cold tone. That's why I keep coming back yet again to something around, remember that line across these classifications, that's our noonday sunshine, D50, roughly 5,000 degrees Kelvin or thereabouts. The white point of graphic arts and printing workflows, that's our base characteristics that we calibrate our printers to when we make profiles for you. It's a D50 rendering unless otherwise desired or requested. So the question then, is it a soft gloss to give it the imprimatur of photography? This is a photograph, unmistakably so, where the purity of the lens and the clarity of the rendering of this image in post-production is going to shine through. It's almost as if the Baryta paper has either the ultimate personality in terms of the indexicality that Andre so often refers to photography's birthright. I'm a witness, I'm indexing what's in front of my lens that moment, that time, plus the rendering you've then applied to it. Or it has no personality at all. It just honestly reveals what is there. And most importantly, with a slightly cool, remember the LAB B values, positive B values are warm tones, negative B values are increasingly blue. I'm then looking at and adapting to the paper white, slightly cooler than noonday sunshine, which our brain loves and thinks that's quite neutral. And my reception can engage with all of those values without being pushed to one extreme or the other in terms of the spatial and temporal compositions and their effect on my feelings, my understandings. But is it going to be soft gloss Baryta or matte Baryta? Of course, with a matte Baryta, no matter how beautiful it is, the blacks are not going to be as black. It's going to quieten it down even more. And given, without upscaling, the resolution of the image at an A3 print is going to hold up just fine, even though I might choose to enhance some of the architectural motifs with a little more dimensionality. That's just me. As it stands at the moment, it's an intimate print size. It's within the size of my body. So it's still personal. It's still about me. It's not the social contract billboard panoptic announcement. If you follow our emotional theory of print size, it's humble, it's personal. But do I want to quieten it down even more and therefore working on the matte version? Or am I looking to that authority of the history of photography, the infamous modernist F-surface soft gloss papers, as Kodak called them, the gelatine surface that we're mimicking here in our beautiful coated inkjet receptor papers? Do I quieten it down? Because with an A3 print, we're not worrying about surface reflections, like a large print on a gallery wall with uncontrolled broad lighting, as we show in the workshop. No problems in a small, intimate A3, even in a large photo book. It's going to be about the emotional connotations of quietening the image down or enhancing it and proclaiming its photographicness before any other emotional engagement or reading of the image. And remember, this is a toned image. So when I'm printing through Mirage, because Mirage doesn't support custom black and white profiles, and it doesn't support toning with its grayscale printing, look, we've lost all the tinting and toning. We are then just printing with the neutral ink mix. No, we want to preserve all of that. So normal means full gamut. And this will be a good segue as to the next question. If I go to, let's say, our BPWC profile variant, where the perceptual table is going to greatly increase the color contrast and replot the primary colors and other things I do to it, and lift the shadow values compared to the numerically perfectly linear relative colorimetric rendering. If I go to my perceptual rendering, more colorful, more three-dimensional, more shadow detail. Let's look at that for a moment. Remember, we've got the simulate paper white on. Wow, look at how three-dimensional, even rotated 90 degrees. You can see how three-dimensional it is. Or do I quieten it down with relative colorimetric? Yeah, the buildings are now really coming forward. Sky, despite its warmth, is receding. This is interesting because if I like what I see here, but I want a little more presence, but I don't want to overdo it, then I might make my first test on the matte surface, but still the BPWC variant, which we'll talk about in some detail in a second, but with our profound perceptual enhancements. There we go. I now have the best of all possible worlds. It's three-dimensional, but not jumping out of its skin because the matte surface, the lower dynamic range is gentle and quiet. That is my reasoning as to how this image, which is not my own, so I'm just making this up, but that is what I would then do to make my first test print of this image to see when I'm holding it physically, whether its materiality, the super smooth surface, the beautiful, slightly cool, white, cool tones, emphasizing the split toning in the image and its dimensionality within that emotional theory of print size of ours, where it's still about me, it's still intimate, it's not yet about us, it's still a moment to savor, to remember, to recall, and so on. That is my first test print. So I'd start with the BPWC, as I tried to demonstrate. When I want that perceptual dimensionality, and this is the beauty of having these options like watercolor, warm tone, watercolor, cool tone. I mean, it's just Arch 88, rag photo, Arch 88, edition etching, BFK Reeves, cool tone, warm tone. It's extraordinary. Like our darkroom papers, we've got these wonderful variations on the theme that inflict such phenomenal aesthetic difference, innovation, attributes to our images. So there's a few hints and clues. Now, Affinity doesn't simulate paper white in there, soft proofing, but Photoshop does. I'll bring up canvas size and put 8 centimeters of white all the way around. So we've got a nice sizable white border to see what's going on. But this is important because when I view proof colors on a custom, and we were printing on Canson Baryta Photographique and BPWC. Now, at the moment, I've got the perfectly linear rendering, converting the white point of the file and the black point of the file to the black and white points of my paper. But paper white is still monitor white. Look at what happens when I turn this on. You get a simulation of paper white. Now, Affinity doesn't do this. Affinity keeps that monitor white. It converts the colors, but it's misleading, let alone when I go to my perceptual table, which then enhances everything even more. And you really start to see the increase in detail in highlights, the dimensionality. Just look at how 3D it is. And that's our before and after. So that's also a really important hint when it comes to proofing and trying to make these decisions. Do we go up and down the color table, paper classifications, and so on.